Welcome, everyone. First, I hope everyone is healthy and safe and doing what they need to stay that way. My name is Andrea Ray, and I have the pleasure to serve as the President CEO at the Seattle Southside Chamber. And on behalf of our board and staff, welcome to our SMART Southside Mitigation and Recovery Task Force webinar on legal review. Thank you to our sponsor, South King Media. Scott and Teresa Schaefer have been tireless advocates for our community, as well as small business owners themselves. They're dedicated to helping other small businesses grow, as well as keeping our community connected and informed. Special congratulations to the team at B-Town Blog for winning the 2019 Society of Professional Journalists Award this week. Congratulations, B-Town Blog. And now, through the miracle of technology, Scott is broadcasting our webinar live now on Facebook so that even more people are able to watch with us and ask questions. Thank you, Scott. Each week, SMART will present a new topic on a subject impacting our community. Next week, we hope you'll join us as we look at what the restaurant industry is doing to prepare for reopening and some of the specific impacts on the restaurant sector. You can register for all of our webinars on our website, seattlesouthsidechamber.com. We know providing opportunities to share information will connect our community and make us stronger and ready for recovery. We hope you can join us for more of these opportunities, and if you or your company is able to donate or sponsor our work so that we can continue to serve our community in and through this challenge, it would be greatly appreciated. Every little bit helps. Even a donation of $1 brings us closer to recovery and helps keep our nonprofit strong and able to serve you and our community. Thank you. It's now my honor to introduce Renata Emerson, our Membership and Programs Manager, for a little housekeeping to maximize your experience on today's webinar. Renata?
Good morning, everybody, and thank you for joining us. Just a few tips and considerations while we're on today's webinar. All of the attendees today are muted and your videos have been turned off. That is so that everyone can hear and best experience the presentation that is going to be shared today. We will be utilizing the Q&A feature within Zoom. And so if you do have a question that comes up at any time, please feel free to find your Q&A, the Q&A icon. It should be at the bottom of your screen. You'll click that and that will allow you to type in your question. Again, at any time that comes up, myself and Andrea will be monitoring the Q&A, and at the end of the presentation, we'll take that time to open it up, ask your questions, and then if there's opportunity or time where you might need clarification, there is also a raise hand feature. If you click the participants icon at the bottom of your screen, you'll see a list of all the attendees and you'll have an option there to raise your hand or lower your hand, and that'll signal to me that you're looking for clarification. There's something more, maybe a follow-up that you want to ask to your question. So that is the best way to get your questions over to us. If you are watching through Facebook Live, thanks to South King Media, then you do have an option to provide your questions in the comment section there, and Mr. Scott will be sending those over to us as well. So thank you again, everyone, and at this time, I'm going to turn it back over to Andrea.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Renata. And now it's my pleasure to introduce Darcel Lobo with DAL Law Firm. Darcel serves on our board and runs her law practice out of Normandy Park, where she helps debtors who are in financial distress, whether it be seeking relief under the Bankruptcy Code or other alternatives to bankruptcy. She also specializes in real estate issues and assists clients with various real estate needs, including but not limited to landlord-tenant disputes, condominium and HOA disputes, real estate purchases, deeds, property agreements, and other various issues. Debt and rent are all issues impacting businesses and community members now, whether they are a landlord and have tenants behind in their rent, or might be a renter struggling with finding a way to make those rent payments now as we hit over 15% unemployed in Washington State. Back in the halcyon days of February, we had an unemployment rate of 3%. So we are so grateful for the time that you've made today, Darcel, to walk us through a general legal review of some things that are impacting our community members and businesses so that they can make the best decisions now and for the future. Darcel, I'm turning it over to you. Thank you.
All right, thank you so much, Andrea. I'm going to share my screen so everyone can see the presentation. Let's see. All right, so everyone should be able to see that. And as Andrea mentioned, my name is Darcel Lobo. I own DAL Law Firm here in Normandy Park. I help clients with real estate, bankruptcy, and estate planning matters. And I am a board member on the Chamber of Commerce and have been for a couple of years now. And I'm happy to be here today. And I wanted to provide some information to talk about the issues that are affecting us in our community. I do ask, I think Renata mentioned that we'll hold questions until the end. So feel free to ask them and put them in the chat, raise hand, but we're gonna save them until the end and I'll go through those questions. We'll have plenty of time afterwards to go through all the questions. And let's see. All right, so what are we going over today? We're going to talk about a lot of different things today that might be affecting you. For the main categories, we're really talking about protecting your business, protecting yourself and your assets, sickness and loss of work for employees, and also various employee issues that might come up as you find yourself returning to work and dealing with those issues. And, to be honest, no one, always really wants to talk about these things. These might not be great times for everyone right now, but it is so important that you know what options are available to you. Whether you're returning your employees to work, you're having to scale back, you're having to rebuild, maybe close shop. We're really going to talk about all these things today. And not to be, doom and gloom, but we really need to have an honest conversation and one that's open so that you can make informed decisions as far as what is best for yourself and for your business. It is so important that you know what the options are. So first, let's delve into protecting your business. The SBA, the Small Business Association, Administration, estimates about 40% of businesses will not survive past November of 2020. That's just 6 months from now. And so we here at the Chamber really want to help you to protect your business and to protect yourself, to put yourself and your business in the best position possible to be able to survive and move forward as we return to work in these next few months. So I think most people know about these options, but I want to touch on them briefly in this presentation as far as what relief options are available under the CARES Act. So we'll do a brief recap of these options. These have already gone into effect over the past few weeks. Starting with PPP, you apply through your bank that is an SBA affiliated bank, and out of the funds that you receive, 75% that you use must be for payroll, and 25% of the funds used can be for non-payroll expenses like rent, utilities, mortgage interest, things like that. You want to make sure that you track your spending of those funds. If you have received those funds or you are expecting to receive them, make sure you have them in a separate bank account. I highly advise that. So if right now you only have one account for your business, I would advise that you open a second bank account so you can easily track those funds so that you can report back when you are seeking forgiveness as to clearly show how those funds were used. And now those funds must be used in the first 8 weeks from disbursement. You also have the option to count your 8 weeks from the beginning of the next pay period. And so depending on the time frame of your pay period, you can adjust the date from when your 8 weeks start, but you only have 8 weeks to use those funds as outlined by SBA. In order to be eligible for forgiveness, you do have to apply for forgiveness, and those applications have started to come out now for businesses that have received the PPP funds. Whatever amount is not forgiven is a loan and must be repaid, I believe, in a 12-month period. So based on what amount has been forgiven and what part is a loan, you will be repaying those funds. Now moving on to EIDL. This is a 30-year loan. The interest rate is about 3.75%. And if you have employees, you were eligible for a $1,000 grant for each employee as an advance. And so if you have applied for EIDL, that was done directly with the SBA. Most people have already applied and if approved have received those funds, whether it's the advance and or the loan. And so again, it was $1,000 for each full-time employee. And on the loan part, again, 3.75% with a 30-year term loan. There are no payments due for the first 12 months of that loan, but there is no forgiveness on the loan. The grant you may have received for the $1,000 per employee, that was not part of your loan. That was just an advance, which is a grant, so not repaid. But the actual loan itself is not forgiven and is a repayment term of 30 years. And then there's also the PUA, which is the Pandemic Unemployment Assistance Program. This is through the Washington State Employee Security Department. It's available to self-employed workers. You would apply through ESD directly. You'll want to make sure to get on their email list for weekly updates if you're not already doing so you can stay apprised of the progress with that program. And for independent contractors, this could be available to you as well. I believe in the next few weeks, ESD will be rolling this out. So again, ESD just being the Employment Security Department. So make sure that you go to their website and sign up for their email updates so you can stay apprised of the different programs that might be coming out and might be available to you. Okay, so again, most people know about those programs, but I wanted to go on and talk about other programs that people may not be as aware of. For these other programs, you're going to want to check with the companies directly in regards to eligibility and deadlines and the terms for these programs. Facebook has had their Small Business Grants program. So that is one you certainly would want to look at to apply for if you haven't already for small businesses. And then also Amazon has a Neighborhood Small Business Relief Fund that you'd want to look into as well if you haven't done so already. Again, check with those companies in regards to deadlines to apply and what the terms are, but both companies do have grant programs available for small businesses. And then also the state of Washington has a Small Business Emergency Grants Fund where they are issuing grants for up to $10,000 per business based on losses due to COVID-19. So you'll want to make sure that you look into that as well if you have not already done so. And even if you may have applied for or received funds under the CARES Act, so for PPP and EIDL, you still can apply for these other programs. So make sure you look into these and that you do so. All right, so we're gonna move on to the next slide in regards to maintaining your business. Now, this can be difficult to do so because most physical state agencies are closed. So if you're trying to get a hold of ESD, Department of Commerce, Department of Revenue, it's going to be more difficult because there's restricted availability of their agents, and usually you can only communicate with them by phone or email right now, but just do the best you can. And so what I want to talk about right now is kind of go over a few areas to help you as you return to work and how to maintain your business going forward. And I really think it starts with your attitude, and this is the one thing that you have complete control over. Everyone's mindsets have changed. Yours, your employees, your customers. You're going to also want to reevaluate your approach to work-life balance. Things, have really changed for all of us. People have gotten used to being home more and being with their family. And so maybe the way that we do work might have to change. I know for myself and my law firm that has changed dramatically for me and my paralegal here. The way that we conducted business just 3 months ago isn't going to work now for us. And that's okay, but we need to be proactive in moving forward and taking charge of our businesses to ensure that we do survive and do weather through this storm. And you can do so. And as a small business, the great thing about a small business is that you're so much more adaptable to change. As a small business, you're better able to be flexible and to modify things as needed. Just make sure that you're being open and maybe willing to think outside of the box a little bit, because again, the way that things have been done for so long isn't going to be how we do things going forward. That's not how your employees will want to conduct business, and that's not how your customers will want to conduct business going forward, possibly. So you want to make sure that you are on board and open and willing to make changes as needed. And as a business owner, I really think this is a great time for you to show up as a leader of your business. You'll want to be realistic with your planning, which is easier said than done, and also trying to not panic or overstress, because as the business owner, your employees are looking to you and will follow your lead as we move forward and start to reopen. And so you're really going to be a leader and an example for your employees as things move forward. All right, so let's talk about money and financials. We don't know what the next 6 to 12 months will bring. As we return to work and we start to move forward, we don't know. So you really want to make sure that you're staying on top of your financials. You want to look at your financials. Unfortunately, many times I have clients who don't, but you need to be looking at your 2019 profit and loss statements on a month-by-month basis. And then for the year 2020, year to date, you want to look at your numbers and your profit and loss on a month-to-month basis. And really look to cut any unnecessary expenses that you can do so. So many clients have no idea what their profit and loss statement even looks like, but you need to know your numbers so you can plan going forward and minimize to reduce any unnecessary expenses that you might have. And along these same lines, you'll want to look at your processes. What can you do to streamline and be more efficient in your business? You might need to change how you conduct business, and that's okay. And also, what policies and procedures can you put into place for your employees? What can you standardize and automate? Being able to standardize and automate certain processes at your business will help reduce time needed to produce the same results that you did before. So if you do have some downtime, this is a time for you to really put policies and procedures into place at your place of business. If you don't already have written policies and procedures, this is a time for you to do so, so that you can move forward and start building as we move forward. All right, the next topic I want to move on to is your staff. Again, this is a time for you to really be a true leader for your employees and to be there for them, when things get hard. And I truly believe that if you support your employees, they will be there to support you and your business. Whether you have 1 employee, 5 employees, or more, how you support your staff is going to be a key factor in the success of your business going forward. So talk to your employees about returning to work. If they've been laid off or if they've been working remotely, assess their ability to come back into your physical business location if it's needed. And make sure you try to accommodate those who might need to work remotely due to COVID-19 issues. For example, childcare. All the kids are out of school through the end of this year, and a lot of daycares have closed. And so be open to that and try to see how you can implement remote working for your employees. And this really ties back to the processes and procedures I talked about in the last slide, and that if you can standardize and automate processes so that your employees can do the work from home and still be as effective, that will really go a long way in regards to the success for your business. And also, as you're looking at returning to work and maybe having employees come back to work and having clients come to your place of business, you want to outline the precautions that you're taking for their safety and for your customer safety. So we're talking about masks and sanitizer, thermometers, social distancing measures. You want to communicate with your employees and your customers what actions you are taking moving forward to protect them. And insurance. Take a look at your insurance policy. It might be a slim chance, but it is possible that there might be some coverage for any virus-related issues. And so give your insurance agent a call. This is a really a good time to do so. You have your insurance policy, you've been paying on it for months or years. So look into it, talk to your agent and see if there is any type of coverage that you might be eligible for in your business. Again, might not be a large chance, but if there is some kind of coverage there, you want to make sure you're looking into it and taking advantage of that. As we go forward and as you're adjusting to changes and possible losses, you still want to make sure you're taking care of your taxes. Now, a lot of deadlines have been extended at the federal and state level, and a lot of penalties can be waived if you have to file or pay things late. But you still want to make sure you're paying attention to the deadlines and that you are meeting them as best you can. So your 940s, your 941s on the federal level, and on the state level, you want to make sure that your B&O returns and any reports you have to make to ESD or L&I for any employees. You want to make sure you're still staying on top of these and getting these filed. A lot of them do have penalty waivers, but you have to request them in writing beforehand. And so if you think you may need additional time to pay any of your quarterly taxes, certainly make sure you're reaching out and asking to receive a waiver, and don't just avoid filing those reports. It's still important that you get those reports done. All right, so let's talk about reopening and your employees. Unfortunately, many businesses are having to reduce hours for their employees, and no one wants to do this. If you're having to do it, that means you're probably seeing less income for your business. So let's talk about the different ways that you can reduce your employees' hours. So there's a few different options. One of them is unfortunately having to lay an employee off. That is when you have no expectation that you'll be rehiring that employee. The next option is furloughing. So it's a temporary layoff or reduction in hours for a specified amount of time. So maybe 3 months, maybe 6 months. So you can do a partial furlough. Maybe if your employee is full-time working 40 hours before COVID, maybe you're reducing them to 30 or 20 hours for a 3 or 6 month period. You can do that. So a furlough is a temporary form of layoff, but where you do intend to rehire that employee in the future. Also, there is a shared work program through Washington State where the employer has to actually apply to be a part of the program. But if you have to reduce your employees' hours, the shared work program can offset that reduction by up to 50%. So again, if your employee used to work 40 hours a week and you're having to reduce it to 20 hours a week, the shared work program can help reimburse that employee to help offset the reduction in hours. It is available to both full-time and part-time employees, and the duration is for up to 1 year. So for up to 12 months, you can reduce an employee's hours by up to 50%, and the shared work program will reimburse that employee a partial amount up to that 50%. So, but the employer does have to apply for it. So if you think you may be in a position where you are having to reduce your employees' hours, make sure you look into the shared work program through Washington State. This is through the ESD department. There's information about it online where you can look into it and also apply to be a part of that program. The next option is standby. This is where employees are not working and they are collecting unemployment benefits, and the requirement to have to look for other work is waived. So generally, but prior to COVID, when an employee was laid off, they had to actually continue to look for work during that time when they received unemployment benefits, but that is waived under this program, and it goes for up to 12 weeks. And all claimants are put into this program automatically. Even if they were previously denied, they should resubmit because it will be approved for standby. This currently is only good through the end of July, this program, where the federal government is providing an additional $600 per week to employees. That could be extended beyond July for an additional 90 days, but as it currently stands, it's only good through July. And then we just have, regular unemployment. But keep in mind, an employee cannot go on unemployment and still collect income from you. They have to report it. And if they do, it's going to deduct and reduce their weekly benefit amount. So if you think you may be able to keep an employee on part-time, maybe looking into the shared work program might be the best option for you and for that employee to help subsidize the loss and the reduction of hours for them. And if you think that you might have to lay an employee off or reduce their hours or somehow, reduce the amount of work that they have, I would advise trying to offer some assistance and to be there to support them during this process. So you can provide them information from the ESD department about WorkSource and a dislocated worker program to help employees, apply for unemployment and to look for new work if you don't think you'll be able to rehire them. Maybe offer a little support and guidance to them as they go through that process, because it's going to be devastating. It's devastating for you as a business owner to have that, loss of income for the business and to have to lay off employees. Nobody wants to have to do that. And then for an employee to be laid off, there's so much uncertainty going forward as far as what things will look like. If you can provide some support as they navigate that process, it would really be appreciated by that employee, I'm sure. And as we talk about unemployment, I want to give a quick note. It's been all over the news. I've actually had not a lot, but I've had a number of clients actually have experienced this with a huge number of fraudulent unemployment claims being filed. And this was happening because ESD was immediately direct depositing funds for claimants and wouldn't verify the loss of employment until a few days later. And when ESD would call the employer, they would find out that the claim was fraudulent and the real employee was still working and never actually filed that claim. And so if this happens to an employee, they need to file a report with ESD right away. And so ESD has now changed their process where they are holding all payments for 1 or 2 business days so that they can first verify the loss of employment with the employer before they pay out the funds. And so I get questions about, well, how would I know if this happened to me? So usually the employee finds out that there's been a fraudulent claim using their personal information, including their social security number and their date of birth, because the employer contacts them. So ESD calls the employer to say, hey, is Bob out of work? Is he laid off? And the employer says, no, he's still working. And then the employer notifies the employee, in this case, Bob, that there was an unemployment claim filed. Bob knows that he did not file a claim, and only to find out that somebody else did so fraudulently in his name. If that happens, again, immediately contact ESD and file the report with ESD immediately. And also you'll want to notify the credit reporting bureaus and probably put a freeze on your credit report so that they cannot incur any debt in your name. Unfortunately, this has been a huge rise that we've seen in the state of Washington and across the country, unfortunately. And a way to be proactive about this if this does not happen, but you want to try and minimize any risk of it happening, is that you can go onto the ESD website and set up an account that requires alerts before any claims are submitted. So there is a way for you to kind of be more proactive to avoid this from happening to you in the future with ESD directly. And again, this information is on their website on how to go on and set up an account, even if you are not planning to claim unemployment, just to ensure that there is no fraudulent claim filed in your name. So let's take a turn from talking about the business, and I want to talk about yourself. If you are a small business owner, the big question is going to be is, do you have a personal obligation to repay business debts? Let me see here. I'm not sure if my slides have been changing, so I'm going to get them caught up. I apologize for this. Renata, I think you were right. I probably should have had you handle this. I thought I had it together, and clearly I do not. I apologize for that, but now we're caught up. All right, we're back on with our slides. So we want to talk about protecting yourself and whether or not you are personally obligated on your business debt. And so, all right, so you want to first sit down and take a look at your business liabilities, and you want to make a list of what those are, and then go through and determine if you have a personal guarantee on those obligations. And again, most small businesses do have to give a personal guarantee. So we're talking about rent, we're talking about business loans, we're talking about business credit accounts. What are you personally liable for versus the business just being liable for it? If you're finding that you might have to wind things down with your business, you'll want to start talking with your creditors of the business. If you might be staying open, but you're having reduced income, looking at a temporary moratorium or a modification on your payments. So again, your rent, the loans, the credit cards, can you get any kind of temporary relief from those different creditors as you're returning back to work and starting to rebuild going forward? If you are winding things down, you'll want to look at maybe trying to negotiate with your creditor in regards to minimizing the amount of loss going forward. So again, if you have a landlord and the rent is due and you think you might be closing. But one key thing is that you'll want to sit down and talk with a professional, probably an attorney or a financial planner, before you start using your personal assets to repay business debts. A big one that I see, unfortunately, is clients using their retirement funds to repay obligations. Do not start doing that until you've talked to someone and really kind of have come up with a game plan as far as how to address things, especially if you have more than one type of debt. If you have rent, credit accounts, if you've got federal taxes, state taxes, there's going to be a hierarchy in which you should start repaying things. You might be in a position of where you're picking and choosing which debts you do or don't pay, or in which order you should pay them. So again, before you start trying to make those decisions and using your personal assets to repay business debts, it is so important that you talk to someone first about that. And if resolution with the creditor isn't an option, you'll want to get a strategy plan together on how to deal with this financially, and talking with an attorney is probably going to be a key thing for you moving forward, because you want to protect yourself, you want to protect your assets and your family's assets, and you want to have this conversation sooner rather than later. Now is not the time to have your head in the sand and to be ignoring it. I know it's hard to deal with, but the best way for you to protect yourself is to be proactive when it comes to the finances. And so if there may be an issue going forward, or you're having financial issues now and you're not sure of how things will move forward in the future for your business, you want to certainly look at having that conversation with a professional now to kind of put a plan together so you're on the same page as them as you decide how to navigate through this process. All right, next we're going to talk about sickness and loss of work and your legal liabilities as an employer in these situations. So a little bit of background: if you're an employer, you should already be aware of this, but because back in January of 2018, employers had new responsibilities under Washington's paid sick leave law, where you have to provide 1 hour of paid sick leave for every 40 hours that the employee works. And this even applies to part-time employees, not just full-time employees. And it must start within 90 days of the employee working for you. So Washington State already has a paid sick leave law that was already set up about 2 years ago in the state of Washington. So all of your employees, if you have employees, should already be under this program and accruing sick leave. But the question becomes, when can they use their sick leave in light of COVID-19? Well, an employee can use sick leave to cover their absence for any COVID-related business closure. So if under the governor's orders, your business was shut down, then sick leave can be used to cover the closure because the business closure was directly related to COVID-19. Even if that employee was not sick him or herself, if the business had to close due to COVID-19, they can use their paid sick leave to cover some of that time that they are out of work. Also, if they have a child whose school or daycare was closed due to COVID-19, they can use their paid sick leave to cover that time. It doesn't mean that their child has to have COVID-19. It's just that their daycare or that their school is closed because of COVID-19. And in the state of Washington, all public schools are closed and private as well. And if a child is in daycare, some daycares are still open. They are an essential business, but if they're been affected by childcare due to COVID-19, then they can use their sick leave, their paid sick leave, to cover their absence. Now, if you had an employee that was laid off, they wouldn't be using their paid sick leave because they're not currently employed. They'd be using their unemployment through ESD. Now, if you have an employee who comes into work and you believe that they've been exposed to COVID-19, you can ask them to go home and to not be at the business, and the employee can use their paid sick leave to cover their loss of time if you do send them home because you believe they've been exposed to COVID-19. The short of it, my advice is when it comes to COVID-19 and paid sick leave, if your employee has any accrued paid sick leave, let them use it. You're going to want to be more flexible now than maybe you were prior to COVID-19. If you have written policies in place, you're going to want to be more flexible with your employees during this time. If they have paid sick leave, let them use it. That's kind of my short take on how to deal with illness during COVID-19 and how to deal with paid sick leave and whether or not you should or should not let them use it. All right, a big one that has come up a lot is employees who refuse to come back to work. And what can you do as an employer if your employee refuses to come back to work? This has been a big one because of the federal unemployment benefit of $600 per week on top of the state benefit. Sometimes employees are earning more on unemployment than they were at work. The current federal $600 per week benefit currently runs through the end of July, but again, it could be extended if Congress chooses to do so. So what can you do in this situation with an employee who refuses to come back to work? Communication with that employee is really key and is really going to be a biggie as far as dealing with this. Now, employees really don't have a choice between working and accepting unemployment. If they have an offer to come to work, unemployment does require, in most instances related to COVID-19, that they do come back to work. But there are some exceptions. And employees, to refuse work, they must have good cause to not accept that work and still receive their unemployment benefits. So either they are sick with COVID-19 themselves, they are caring for a family member who is sick with COVID-19, or they're in a high-risk category, which could be a really large number of reasons why someone would be in a high-risk category. Someone who's 65 and older, if someone resides in a nursing home or a long-term care facility, or if somebody has an underlying medical condition of any age. So we're talking about chronic lung disease, moderate to severe asthma, heart conditions, a compromised immune system, diabetes, chronic kidney disease, liver disease. There's a wide array of reasons why someone may be high risk, and this is for any age. So if somebody is in a high risk category, then they can elect to not return to work and continue to collect unemployment. If the person has young children who cannot go to school or daycare because of COVID-19, then they can refuse to accept work and continue collecting unemployment. Or if you have substantially changed the scope of their job from what they were doing pre-COVID, then they can elect to not accept that work and continue to collect unemployment. But generally speaking, employees cannot refuse to accept work and instead elect to collect unemployment. So if you find yourself in that predicament, my advice is that you send the employee a very detailed letter outlining what your job offer is to them, for how many hours per week, what the rate of pay will be, the details of the work, the return to work date, and also the measures that you are taking as a business owner to protect them during COVID-19. And so again, the mask, the sanitizer, the extra deep cleaning, the social distancing, you'll want to propose all that information in a letter that you send to them so you can have documentation in the event that there is a dispute with unemployment as to whether or not they could or could not return to work. So again, put that in a letter to the employees if you're having an employee who refuses to come to work. So unemployment issues. If you have an employee who you believe is wrongly not accepting work and is accepting unemployment instead, there are a few options here as far as how to handle that. So when a person makes a claim for unemployment, they have to confirm whether or not they have been offered employment, and if so, what the terms are. And the employer is also notified that the individual has filed a claim. For any new claims or reopened unemployment claims, they will come to you as the employer, and you can elect to dispute it. So if you have an employee who you offered work to and they did not have good cause to decline it, then you can dispute the claim with unemployment at that point in time. Also, you can opt to be proactive and to initiate to report an employee who has refused to come to work. There's pros and cons of doing that. I'm not sure that I would advise initiating that report on an employee who has refused work. You may instead just opt for unemployment to contact you, and then you can notify unemployment of what the job was offered to them and provide them a copy of the letter that was sent to the employee, and let unemployment decide how they want to handle that going forward. For any employees who file a false claim with unemployment, there can be severe consequences, and it kind of is a tier as far as the severity of the false claim. So initially it starts with a denial of benefits. There's also a repayment of any benefits the person received that they were not entitled to, as well as penalties paid to ESD. And if it's severe enough, there could also be criminal prosecution of that person for a false unemployment claim. So that's kind of my wrap on unemployment and what that looks like and what the options are for employers if you're dealing with an employee who refuses to come back to work. You do have options, but again, I would advise that you put it in writing as far as what you are offering to that employee, so that when unemployment contacts you to verify their unemployment, you can give unemployment a copy of that letter that you sent to them in writing, outlining the details of the job. All right, and then additional resources. There are a lot of resources available to you online. The various state agencies have really done, I think, a really good job of putting together resources for individuals and for business owners and employees. Again, with physical offices being closed, being able to reach someone by phone will be difficult, probably. But online, there's a lot of information, and they are continually updating their websites. So Department of Commerce, Employment and Security Department, the Department of Revenue, and there's also a small business webinar series at coronavirus.wa.gov, which has a lot of useful information, and they are doing webinars once a week. So it can be very helpful for business owners as far as how to navigate and deal with different things as it comes to the various state agencies. And then also make sure that you are on the Department of Commerce. They have a weekly email that they send out to you, and so make sure you sign up for that list. They have a lot of information there in regards to the updates and what is going on in the state of Washington in regards to the coronavirus, and how to navigate that process going forward. So that's about it. That's what I have for today. And I want to thank everyone for having me, and thank you to the Chamber for having me. And just things are always changing, are always progressing and evolving. And I know we're all inundated with so many emails, but make sure you take a look. The Chamber does a great job of sending out emails with updates. And there's a lot of good information in there about how we can support each other and our small businesses during this time. And it's really going to take our community effort to support our local businesses. So make sure you stay tuned and look at that from the Chamber. And at this time, we can open it up to Q&A.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Darcel. That was a great legal review on, just how to not only protect, yourself, but also, how to protect your business, and just kind of a good snapshot of, the lay of the legal land, which in some ways, does, look very different now, right? So we do have a couple questions that have come in from Facebook, and then I know I have a couple questions that people have texted me, and so I'm looking here, in the chat. So this is kind of a question about, economic recovery, and I'm happy to share my thoughts, and then Darcel, you can share yours as well. But the question about, again, you shared how, by November, we are estimating that as many as 40% of small businesses are not going to be open again. They'll be closed and closed for good. And we know, and this is why we spend so much time at the chamber helping small businesses, right? The small businesses are the backbone of our economy locally, regionally, and nationally. And so when we start thinking about, what does the future economy look like? We've talked about, a V-shaped recession, which means it's really, really bad fast, but then it gets better really, really quickly too. We've talked about, a W-shaped, kind of recession where we dip down and it's a little bit longer to come up, and then, we maybe dip down again. What are your kind of thoughts and feelings about, what could we be looking at an L, right? Yeah. You're muted. I want to take yourself off mute.
Thank you. I just said no, not an L.
No. We hope, right? I mean, I think, yeah, give your answer and then I'll give my 2 cents.
Right. I think it probably look more like a W, unfortunately. I think, as we return to work, things might pick up, but we don't know if there's going to be a second wave of COVID that comes back. I'm already getting emails from my kids' school about what the fall might look like, as far as them maybe not returning to school how they used to. And there might be some modifications with online learning and distancing. So I think we need to be prepared that there might be another dip in the future for us as we return to work. We see how this virus progresses. So doing what we can to really strengthen our businesses and support our employees and support each other's businesses here on a local level will help our businesses be able to survive through the W that I probably am seeing that's going to happen.
Yeah, and I would agree with you. This is one of the reasons why, we're hosting our June 24th Resiliency Summit. So it's going to be a virtual summit. We're going to have Chris Mefford from Community Attributes, who spends a lot of time, going through local and regional data, give us a little bit of a better snapshot. I say this a lot, I wish I had a crystal ball that I could look into. Right. But again, looking at, what's happened before in the past, and the past, being a good indicator of what we can expect in the future, until we do have a vaccine or a cure, we're going to be living with this virus for a while. And that probably does mean, as the governor has said, we're moving in and out of these phases and restrictions, back and forth for a while. So I do see it. It will get better, and then we might hit a couple roadblocks, and then it'll get better again. That's why the chamber again so focused on supporting local business with our local marketing campaigns, with our Keep Calm Carry Out, partnering with Saving Local. Really doing everything we can to support our local businesses is paramount. And then also with advocacy, right? We need to continue to advocate for what that 4th phase of recovery looks like, with federal legislation, and, state and county mitigation as well. So we'll continue to do that to help support our local economy. And as you mentioned, there's a shared partnership and responsibility, for all of us to do what we can. Perfect. So then another question from Facebook. Darcel, if you could talk just a little bit about the process for filing for bankruptcy.
That's really a big question, right? Because it really depends on that person's circumstances. Are we talking about for a business? Are we talking about personally? Are we talking about, a home facing foreclosure or a lawsuit or garnishment? So as far as the process, to put it short, I offer a free consultation where I, sit down with you. Now it's through Zoom or through phone, but where we go through your finances and figure out what the best option is for you. And right now when it comes to bankruptcy, we don't know what the future will hold, for that person. Are they going back to work? If so, when? And so looking at the timing of filing also is really important. So I think my best answer is that I offer a free consult to talk about it, because I really need to look at each person's individual finances. And if it's for a business owner, I need to go through that business's, P&Ls and balance sheet, and look at personal guarantees if there are any. So it's hard for me to give a one-size-fits-all as far as the process for bankruptcy, but you'll want to, at least for an initial consult, know what your income has been for the past 6 months and know what your debts are so that I can do a proper analysis of your finances for you.
Perfect. And then that kind of dovetails a little bit into a question that somebody, texted me, which is, what is that best way, to prepare for that meeting? So, this business owner has, boxes of receipts and then, files from their Square accounts and then bank statements and credit card statements, and everything's kind of all over the place. Is that something that they should maybe start with the CPA and then see a lawyer? Or, if they compiled it all into an Excel spreadsheet, that would be something then that you could take a look at and help? Or how would you, suggest somebody kind of take that first step to, kind of collate that information?
So I think it starts with your P&Ls. So making sure that you have a P&L. And so you'll want to have a monthly P&L so we can kind of see how things have progressed. So if you don't have a P&L or a comprehensive P&L that somebody else can understand, I think that's going to be your first step in preparing. And even if it's not for bankruptcy, it's just really important that business owners understand their P&Ls and evaluate them and kind of see if they can cut some expenses and what they can do to help support the success of their business going forward. But in regards to bankruptcy, I think getting your P&Ls in order and determining what the debts are. So whether it's you have those statements or if you have an Excel spreadsheet and you just say, I owe Bank America $10,000, I owe Chase $5,000. I can take a list also, but I really need your P&Ls to be in order as a business owner. So that's going to be your first step.
Perfect. And then that is something that the Chamber can help with too. So we provide those technical assistants, or what we call business improvement appointments, that are, free and confidential. And, if we cannot respond and get an appointment within, 24 to 48 hours, with that technical assistance or business improvement appointment, we have a wonderful partnership with the Small Business Development Center at Highline College. And they also provide, free consultations and technical assistance appointments. So do not be afraid if you are, in that category of, it makes perfect sense to you, but it might not make perfect sense to someone else.
Right.
There are free resources available, to help you get that in order. And again, we're happy to do that at the Chamber. And then again, our partners with the Small Business Development Center as well. Yeah. Perfect.
Yeah. And I think that's really amazing. I think for all business owners to be doing is to be reviewing their P&Ls, whether they're in distress or not. You just need to make sure you're staying on top of them. So I think it's so important and amazing to have those free resources to be able to have those check-ins and make sure your finances are in order. So that's great.
Perfect. Another question from Facebook. Question about sole proprietors versus LLCs and corporations, for kind of, moving forward, for the recovery. Are there different options? And, what would some of those options be?
Like as business structures, you mean? Like, I don't understand the question.
I'm reading the exact words from the question are there different options for sole proprietors versus LLCs and corporations for moving forward, during recovery? And I think in terms of, access to funds, right, we kind of went over that, there's the IDAL, and the PUA, right, that's available. So that's a little different. And I don't know, maybe just expanding on that a little bit more would help this person.
Okay. So yeah, there are options, whether you're a sole proprietor or LLC or S Corp. I mean, there are various options available. With the PUA, they actually are available to independent contractors soon as well. So there certainly are options. Just want to make sure that you have your governing documents that you filed with the Secretary of State when you created your entity, whatever that entity may be. But there are options, again, based on your size and based on number of employees and how much you were impacted is probably more so going to affect your eligibility for programs. But whether you're a sole prop or LLC, as a business, you still can be entitled to the different resources and relief options available for businesses.
Perfect. And I would just say, if that did not answer your question, please do contact the chamber and we can, dig into that a little bit more. And again, provide that, technical assistance appointment, to help you, really make sure that you know how to access, what program is best for you and your business. Great. So next question, if you could clarify the 8 months to initiate the use of the PPP funds. So some businesses are taking and banking that loan now and intend to use it only if they need it. Is that wise?
Okay, it's not 8 months, it's 8 weeks. So it's 8 weeks. And so that's probably not the best choice for the PPP loan because the repayment term on PPP is only 12 months. And so on PPP, that can be forgiven if you use it in those 8 weeks. So holding those funds and banking them isn't going to do you a lot of good. With PPP, you want to use them in those 8 weeks to get forgiveness. So if you have any income coming in those 8 weeks, you can bank that income and use your PPP to pay for your payroll and your rent and utilities. Use the PPP funds in those 8 weeks to get the forgiveness. Now, if you're looking to just have a backup plan and want to have loan funds set aside just in case you need it, then the EIDL loan would be the appropriate method for doing that. Because on the EIDL, it is 1 year of no payments, and then it's a 30-year repayment term at 3.75% interest. So applying for an EIDL loan, even if you don't need it in this moment, because we don't know what the next 3 months or 6 months might look like for us. And so if you're looking to obtain a loan to just hold on to just in case, then EIDL will be the proper loan to apply for under the CARES Act, not PPP, because that one has forgiveness if used within the first 8 weeks.
Perfect. Thank you so much. Going back here to some text messages, and these are a little bit more related to the employee-employer relationship. So again, you mentioned being flexible when it comes to sick leave policies now. So, again, maybe not, being a little bit more using interpretation for that employee handbook to be as flexible as possible with sick leave. Would you also recommend that with other, leave benefits and policies like vacation and parental leave, and bereavement? Or do you think kind of staying in that lane of flexibility with sick leave is most appropriate, or what would your advice be on that?
I think it's going to be on a case-by-case basis between, that business and the employees. But look, at this time, people are really having a hard time. They're really struggling. Maybe their spouse is out of work, their children are home. And so if you are able to be more flexible with your other programs, whether it's vacation or, I would be, to the extent that you can be, and that's reasonable, just in light of everything that's going on, because it's affecting so much more than just that one employee's pay. This is affecting our entire lives for all of us. And people are, handling it differently. Some people are having a harder time than others coping with the mental and emotional changes that they've been experiencing with this. And so to the extent that you can be more flexible, I would suggest doing so. But again, within reason, if you feel an employee is taking advantage of it and abusing it, then you might want to be a little bit stricter as far as what allowances you allow for deviation to your policies. So, but I would err on being a little bit more flexible with your employees in regards to any kind of leave at this time.
Perfect. And then this also, final question that I have here, text message, and then we'll do a last call on Facebook and the webinar, also kind of relates to those employee issues. So what you mentioned documenting, so what would you say is the best way to, document these employer-employee interactions, right? You mentioned doing kind of a formal letter. How do you document a phone call, that might happen? Is there a process or a system that you would recommend, for documenting these interactions with employees?
I mean, so for a phone call, I mean, having just, a notebook with handwritten notes with the date and time and, who you were talking to would be sufficient for a phone call. Or maybe you send an email follow-up after a phone call saying, just to recap our phone conversation, we agreed to ABC, XYZ, you agreed to this or whatever that phone call comprised of, just to memorialize it in writing to have clarity after that conversation. So I think those would both be good options for documenting any kind of phone calls, and then saving the emails. And then my letter was in regards to an employee who refuses to come back to work. Because if they're filing an unemployment claim, unemployment is going to contact you, and there could be a dispute as to what was offered to them and the scope of that job. So if you have an employee who refuses to come back to work, that's when I think a formal letter should be sent out. Via mail and email is fine. I would do both, probably, outlining the scope of the job that you're offering, the date of returning to work, and again, what COVID measures you are taking to protect them. I think will be a big one as well, because that might be something that's used by the employee as far as why they were not accepting the work. So outlining the steps that you're taking to protect your employees will be a big part of that letter as well. Again, it could be a one-page letter, but it just needs to outline those different things if you have an employee who's refusing to come back to work.
Perfect. Thank you so much. And I think that's just good advice in general, because again, it's hard to interpret tone sometimes, and we have so much information, flying at us all at once. And so just to, reiterate, and like you said, memorialize that, this is what I heard you say and what we agreed to. And it invites that, opportunity to be like, whoa, no, that's not what I understood at all.
Right.
And then we can have more of that conversation, and just how important that communication is. Always, but especially now when, like you said, tension and stress is so high. So
right.
Again, really appreciate that. So Darcel, that was our last question.
All right.
So again, thank you so much for being here with us this morning and now going into the afternoon as we all learn, how to protect ourselves and our business. Thank you so much to Renata for all you do to keep us on point here with our webinar series. Thank you to Scott and Teresa Schaefer, South King Media, and the award-winning B-Town blog. Thank you to those who made time to join us today through Zoom and through Facebook. This webinar will be posted to our website later so that you can view and share it with others. The website seattlesouthsidechamber.com/smart. That'll take you right to our Southside Mitigation and Recovery Task Force page, where there's lots of resources for you and your business. And you can also donate directly to our work there. And again, even a small donation of $1 really does help us serve our community, and we are grateful and deeply appreciate any and all contributions. I hope everyone has a great Memorial Day weekend. Memorial Day is Monday, and while we normally spend this weekend gathering to commemorate the heroes who made the ultimate sacrifice, we invite you to find other ways to honor their memory this weekend. We hope that you have a healthy and a happy holiday weekend, and stay healthy, stay safe, and we'll see you back here next week. Goodbye. Thank you.